Why do we need more women in leadership? And does having more women in leadership actually create an impact on the results that your organization is achieving? By the end of this video, you're going to learn about the importance of diversity in your leadership team, and that includes having more women in leadership roles. And we'll also share our research, the surprising findings when we looked at the impact of women in leadership on culture strength and other metrics like psychological safety and employee engagement. You may be surprised to learn how your organization might be missing out on opportunities to drive results based on the makeup of your leaders. As it turns out, having women in your leadership roles specifically can drive massive impact on the results that you're getting. Unfortunately, a McKinsey study recently reported that for every 100 men who are promoted, only 88 women are promoted to a similar position. When you look at the distribution of men and women in leadership roles, there is a lack of gender equity. So it's critical to understand why we want to promote more women and why women in leadership will help your organization drive results. In a longitudinal Culture Partners study, we looked at organizations who had few women in leadership and compared them to organizations that had many women in leadership. We wanted to understand the impact that those differences in gender in leadership had on various factors, including psychological ownership, culture strength, employee engagement, and many more. The first finding was that overall women were less engaged than men. However, when we looked at organizations that had more women in leadership, specifically organizations that had 45 to 76% of their leadership roles filled by women, that was reversed. And not only that, but culture strength was improved across the board for everyone, regardless of gender. In addition, employees were more engaged, they had more psychological ownership of the work that they were doing, they took more personal ownership of the work that they were doing, and they were more clear on the results that they were trying to achieve. Overall, having more women in leadership had profound impacts on results and employee fulfillment across the board. Not surprisingly, the organizations that had 0 to 20% of their leadership roles filled by women had much lower scores on all of those metrics. According to a global economic study by The Economist and McKinsey, they found that if the gender gap was bridged across the board, then the entire world would be richer to the tune of $28 trillion, or that translates to 26% richer. The key here is to create an equitable workforce. And in this video, we're going to share how you can go about doing that. But before we do that, I want to encourage you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. In particular, I'd love to see any comments you have about gender equity in the workplace in your experience. So how do you create a more equitable workplace, and not just for women, but for everyone? There are 3 key phases to embracing equity in the workplace and an inclusive environment. The first phase is understanding that there is a problem, being willing to have the conversation. In the last 3 years, so many organizations have started to take diversity, equity, and inclusion more seriously. And they've all begun in the same place, the D of DEI, diversity. That has to do with making sure that our workplaces have more diversity in them, and it begins with tracking metrics along those lines. Understanding what the demographics are of our employees, the diversity of the people that we hire, the diversity of the people that we promote, and simply tracking those metrics makes this more top of mind for all leaders and can help to influence creating a more diverse workplace. Awareness is the first phase, and there's a common phrase in the diversity, equity, and inclusion world, which is what gets measured gets done. So begin measuring what it is that you'd like to impact so that you can start to make a difference in those areas. The second phase has to do with overcoming unconscious bias to make sure that decisions are being based on equitable grounds, meaning you are promoting based on merit and competence and not based on who you get along with more or who you happen to like more. This is one of the dangers of culture fit. Oftentimes, leaders think that they need to hire or promote people who are a better culture fit. But culture fit is really a way for unconscious bias to seep into our decision making. When people think about culture fit, oftentimes they're thinking about who would I rather hang out with? In fact, I know someone who works in the investment banking world, and they said that they used to make decisions based on the airplane test. The airplane test is when it comes down to 2 people that you're either going to promote or hire, you decide based on the airplane test, and that is, Who would I rather be stuck with if I was on an airplane for 6 hours? That kind of decision making makes you decide to go with the people that you have something more in common with. Go with the people who have similar backgrounds. Go with the people who look just like you. And that is poor decision making, and it will not lead to an equitable workplace. So creating fair benchmarks across the board so that you understand that your decision making is not based on bias, but is based on competence is critical in this step. It's also important to make sure that everyone knows what unconscious bias is and they're aware of their own unconscious bias. We have a video specifically on what unconscious bias is and how you can overcome that unconscious bias, so check that out if it's something that you're interested in learning more about. The third phase of creating an equitable workplace is creating flexibility in your schedules. You would be surprised how flexible schedule and flexible workplace arrangements allows women more opportunities within the workplace. At the beginning of the pandemic, when many child care centers closed, our research shows that women bore the brunt of having to leave their roles in order to care for children much more than men did. So having flexible workplace schedules and the ability to work from home will also enable you to promote and hire women in order to create more equity in your workplace. Having women in leadership roles also offers an opportunity for people who are new in their career to realize what's possible for them. Only 41 of the Fortune 500 CEOs are women, which means that there are fewer role models for women to look up to see what's possible for them. Promoting more women in your organization allows new hires and people who are early in their career to see what's possible for them. We have much more research about women in leadership to share with you, and if you're interested in getting a copy of our Women in Leadership report, then go to gift.culture.io, or you can click on the link below in the description and get your copy.